Arnold.
All right. Dean Arnold Podcast, August 18th. We got stuff to do today. Oh, yeah. Going to look at some scriptures, going to look at the saint of the day. We got a big topic. Every now and then I get people who say, what are your issues on the congressional race? Because they want to cage me in and frame the debate. I frame my own debate. If I think the issue is Vince Foster getting killed, that's the issue. If I think the issue is we used to have 2 sleeps and now we only sleep once, then that's the issue of the day that matters. And people want to cage me in on what matters. I got a better idea of what matters than they do. But today we're going to talk about something that's more accessible for these people who want to know about the issues of the day, although they won't like, a lot of them won't like what I'm saying here. We're going to talk about Israel, Greater Israel, pretty much the number one issue of the day, I think, when you drill down. So we'll talk about it a little bit today. And it's some interesting stuff. I'm running for Congress. Vote for me in November. DeanArnoldForCongress.com is where you give. I'll be putting out more and more signs here in a little bit. Comments and questions appreciated. Like, share, and subscribe. I am bringing sanity to an insane world. Yes, I am. On August 18th, I am doing that. And we're going to talk about not just Israel today. We're going to talk about Greater Israel. Have you heard about Greater Israel? Let me bring up a picture to help you with that. That's Greater Israel right there. A lot of people think that's Israel's ambitions. Part of Egypt, a lot of Saudi Arabia, half of Iraq, a good bit of Syria, a lot of Lebanon, Jordan, all of Jordan. Greater Israel seems to be the goal for a lot of people. Why does that matter? Because it puts Israel not in a defensive position. Oh, poor Israel, everybody's trying to kill them. They have the right to exist. No. Do they have the right to conquer? That's really the question. When people say, does Israel have the right to exist? They really mean, does Israel have the right to be a conquistador and destroy all the people they hate? So that's Greater Israel right there. We're going to get into it a lot more here in a minute. But first, let's go ahead and get into the scriptures of the day. And 2 Corinthians, verse 15 of chapter 5. And he died for all, that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died for them and rose again. It's a long passage. There's a lot going on here. Verse 20. Now then, we are ambassadors for Christ, as though God were pleading through us. So we implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. Okay, that's it. I've always liked that phrase. And we'll just spend a little time talking about it. Be reconciled to God. I like that. You look at the 37 different translations of it in Bible Gateway. Make peace with God. Be reunited to God is another one. I like that. The reason I like this is that I think it kind of gets confusing. You need to be saved. You need to pray the prayer. You need to be saved. Well, there's some truth to that, but it gets a little confusing as to what that means. There's a lot of people who got saved once and now they're living like the devil. So what do we do with them? And this verse just kind of cuts through to it. Be reconciled to God. Everybody needs to be reconciled to God. Hey, I need to be reconciled to God when I sin. So this is a great charge for everyone. Christian, non-Christian, once saved, always saved, never saved, got saved when I was a kid, prayed the prayer, this, that, and the other, living great for God yesterday, but not for today. Be reconciled to God. This is a great passage. Remember it. 2 Corinthians 5. Gospel of the day. Okay, verse 16. Jesus is walking by the Sea of Galilee. He sees Simon and Andrew, brothers. They cast the net into the sea, for they were fishermen. Jesus says, follow me. I'll make you fishers of men. Goes a little farther. He sees James and John, the sons of Zebedee, who are also in the boat mending their nets. And he immediately called them. And they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired servants and went after him. A few things to notice here. First of all, I had it once taught to me, and it made sense to me, that this wasn't just some kind of weird, like, Twilight Zone thing where this stranger walks up on the shore out of nowhere, and James and John are on the boat with their father Zebedee, and Jesus says, come, follow me. And they, like in a trance, stop, drop their nets, and start to follow like zombies over to Jesus. And they leave everything, follow Jesus. It was better explained to me that Jesus had been around, and he met these guys, and they talked to him, and they've come to a couple of places where he spoke, and they were absolutely, enchanted and mesmerized by the guy. And he talked about how he was about to go on a mission, and at some point he'd be coming and calling on them. And so when he finally does, they like drop their nets and head. That makes more sense. Can't prove it. It's just a teaching that makes sense to me. And then the larger thing I want to talk about this is that we got Simon and Andrew, their brothers, they're fishing on a boat. John and James, their brothers, they're fishing with their father. And, a lot of fishing going on. Fishing is the new metaphor, fish. In the new covenant, all the Gentile nations are represented by fish. We've talked about that. Israel was represented by land animals like sheep and bulls. And then, James and John are on there with their father Zebedee. He's got the big family business, and man, it all just gets broken up by this Jesus guy. Must have been fairly upsetting, discombobulating, turmoilous for Zebedee. I mean, my two sons are heading out, leaving the family business, leaving me high and dry. That's pretty interesting stuff. But that's what happens here in this passage. It's a good little gospel passage. I like it. All right, let us move now, shall we, to the lives of the saints. And I forgot which lives of the saints I was going to do today. I think we'll do Venerable Christodulus, the philosopher. Yes, that's who we're going to do. Great church figure in the village of Saqqara in the Imereti region. Forget where that is, but I think it's Byzantium. But he was a sharp guy, knew the scriptures. Became conversant in other religions and creeds, and for this purpose, he memorized the Quran. Oh, okay. The Persian king wanted a debate on theological issues between Muslims and Christians, so he invited Christodulus to take part in the debate. First, the king himself debated. He suffered an upset. Then a certain pagan astrologer was brought in to replace him. And when it became clear that it was, let me bring this up so you guys can see it. Sorry. When it became clear that he was too much and not a match for the elder philosopher, the king summoned a renowned scholar to outwit him. In the debates with this scholar, Christodulus freely cited both the Holy Scriptures and the Quran, and with his brilliant logic and rhetoric, he triumphed over his rival. His challengers were disgraced. Oh, I just thought it was interesting, in a day of where Jay Dyer's doing all these debates and people don't like them. Or we just had the big debate between Candace Owens and Andrew Wilson that was pretty interesting. Debates are a big deal. Justin Martyr was always doing debates. Varlam and Gregory Palamas were always doing debates. A lot of debates in the church fathers. Nothing wrong with debates. Debates are good. And sometimes you got to be pretty sharp and, straightforward when you're in debates. His challengers were disgraced, it says there. So disgracing your opponent is not off limits. So this guy was made a saint. And that's it. That's all I want to say about that. We got a guy who's a formal debater, philosopher on the church calendar who's made a saint because he did a super duper job with what he needed to do there. All right, let's go ahead and get into some. Okay. So we're going to talk about Greater Israel. And darn it, I got a couple of notes here that I forgot to write down. Looks like I got it, though. That's good. Where do we start? Well, let's go back to that image I showed you. People are saying that this is what Greater Israel really should be, and that this is really Israel's aim. Here's another version of Greater Israel. So Israel is just this little teeny part over here on the east side of the Mediterranean Sea. That's the classic Israel, but the Greater Israel is this bigger thing. And some are saying that really is the aim, and that's why Israel is so offensive in all its military tactics. Is this true or not? Well, let's talk about it. This kind of resurfaced recently, about 2 months ago, when Tucker Carlson interviewed Mike Huckabee, who's the ambassador to Israel. And Tucker asked him, should Israel take part of Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and Syria? And you know what Huckabee said? It'd be fine if they took it. I got a lot of Muslim countries mad. But those boundaries are based on one of the verses in Genesis that talks about what the broader boundaries of Israel could be. So it gets back to the Bible. We're going to talk about that too, because it ain't true. That ain't true anymore. That's not the case. But if you think the Bible has given the current people today called Israel that landmass, you are wrong. If you believe that there is any Israel like that, you are wrong. If you believe that Israel deserves a landmass, you're wrong. We'll get to that. So starting with the Huckabee thing, that got some people concerned again. It's because they'd heard about this Greater Israel. It popped up in the Journal for Judaism and Zionism in 1982. The editor, Yoram Beck, talked about how this would be good for Israel to have all this land. It was published by the Department of Publicity, the World Zionist Organization in Jerusalem. And actually started way back when the founder of Zionism, Theodor Herzl, talked about it, probably like 1920 in his diaries. I don't have the date, sorry. But in his diaries, volume 2, page 711, the founder of Zionism says that the area of the Jewish state stretches, quote, from the brook of Egypt to the Euphrates. So that map right here, that's the brook of, down here is the brook of the Nile, the brook of Egypt. And then up here is the Euphrates River. So those are the boundaries that we get in Deuteronomy. Okay. And there was it's called the Yan Banan plan. Should have that written down here, but I don't, and I'm sorry. But in 2000, Lebanon's Hezbollah leader, Hassan Nasrallah, who has since been assassinated by Israel, he declared in his famous speech in 2000 that the Greater Israel Project is over. So he believed in a Greater Israel Project, and he said it was over. And then they killed him. Also in the 2000s, Bezalel Smotrich, who held the position of finance minister in Israel, he dreamed of, quote, greater Israel that would extend from the Nile to the Euphrates. So that's an Israeli official who's talking about it. And then Israeli Army Chief of Staff Herzl Halevi reportedly removed a patch of Greater Israel from a soldier's uniform and put it in his pocket. And he said, you can put it close to your heart, but only military things are in the uniform. Okay, I jumped the gun here. So what they're talking about here is this. On the right side at the bottom, remember that is Greater Israel map? Well, there it is right there. That's on a Israeli uniform. And here it is again on an Israeli uniform. I've got a neat little video that I'm able to show you about this Israeli uniform thing. Let's see if I can pull it off. I'm not sure, but share screen, and this is a TikTok video. I just might pull this off.
Why do Israelis?
That is not what I'm looking for. Right here. This is about the Israeli patch.
That was seen on the uniform of an Israeli soldier. Look closely. What do you see? You see Palestine, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Egypt, and a small part of Turkey. And next to it is written, the Promised Land. What does this mean? Are Israel only fighting a defensive war? Or do they have a hidden agenda to continue to expand their land by taking over the countries around them? Which that was seen on the
Okay. So a lot of Israeli soldiers had that patch on their sleeve showing the Greater Israel. That upset a lot of people. Now, officially, Israeli spokesman officials came out and said, we don't support this officially in the Israeli military. Let me go back and read what that Army Chief of Staff said. He said, you can put it inside close to your heart, but only military things are on the uniform. So officially they wouldn't allow it on the uniform, but unofficially it's like, make it close to your heart. We're into this Greater Israel thing. Yeah. So Greater Israel is a thing. What else I got to tell you? I think that's the main thing I got to tell you. So there is this thing called Greater Israel, and no one has denied it, but they do try to slip away from it. And any questions and comments, welcome. So anybody got some further evidence of the reality of Greater Israel, let me know. Okay. Questions, comments. Good afternoon. What's going on, Princess? How about reprehensive? I'm not sure what that's in light of, Sarah. Maybe you can further communicate, but appreciate that. So the bigger issue here is I've got Christian Zionist friends, good people, smart, godly, love the Lord. But they wouldn't blink at this. Hey, if Israel wants to take down Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, half of Saudi Arabia, half of Iraq, and a good bit of Egypt and all of Jordan, hey, go for it. We are for it because the Bible says so. The Bible tells me so. That's what they'll say. They won't blink. So to deal with this argument, guys, we just have to have the right interpretation of the Bible. And it's very simple. There was an old covenant where Israel was promised certain boundaries of land if they remained faithful to God and were obedient. And then there's a new covenant where that no longer applies. And now the land is all the earth through the Gentiles. And this particular spot of land that was semi-promised, Jesus says we're going to destroy it completely. Not one stone is going to be left on another. That is destroyed. That's the new covenant, where Jerusalem and the temple and the Old Testament system is demolished and destroyed. It's gone. It's out of here forever. No more Israel. Israel as one of the 153 nations, maybe, but not anything special and not chosen. They've got to follow Jesus Christ. He who has the Son has life. He who does not have the Son does not have life, and the wrath of God abides on him forever. Okay, so the Israelis right now, they don't like Jesus. They don't embrace Jesus, and the wrath of God abides on them forever until they change. If they repent, okay, we'll talk. All right, let's go back, because Old Covenant, New Covenant doesn't seem to be good enough for some people. But when the Israelites were first taken out of Egypt, they were supposed to be taken to the promised land right away. This promised land, that was promised in Genesis and Deuteronomy with the boundary lines and everything everybody's all obsessed with today. They didn't get the promised land. They had to wander around in the wilderness for 40 years because they were disobedient. Disobedient. You don't get the land if you're disobedient. They finally got into the land. King David did some great stuff, but then the king started to disobey and rebel. Solomon, Moab, Molech worship and Baal worship and all that kind of stuff. And so they were kicked out of the land. It wasn't good enough just to be Jews. It wasn't good enough just to have Abraham's DNA. You had to be obedient. And if not, you are kicked out. Now, God in his mercy and his compassion and his grace, a few generations later, they came back in. And then what happened? They rejected Jesus. They were disobedient. They were evil. They were awful. They were obstinate. They were hard-headed. And they were kicked out of the land again for being disobedient. You don't get the land if you're disobedient. Now, you don't get the land anyway because it's the new covenant. But for those of you people who can't understand old covenant, new covenant, I'm doing this for you. They were kicked out of the land for being disobedient. Israel is like the number one LGBT sexually immoral country in the world. They are doing the genocide in Gaza. They're killing infants by the tens of thousands. Snipers are just killing infants being held by their mothers. If you can think of something more evil, tell me. But they're aggressive militarily to all their neighbors, and they're evil. They are disobedient, and they do not have the Son. For all those reasons, they do not deserve the land. So don't give me this, hey, Greater Israel Project sounds good to me. God gave it to him. No, he did not. He took it from him. And it's the new covenant. Jesus Christ. Jesus is king. And he has replaced Israel with the apostles and with the Gentiles as those who co-reign with him on the earth. Oh, dear. So we got to get to this theological stuff, y'all. And if you're a Protestant and you think you can just willy-nilly interpret the Bible however you want with your dumb Christian Zionist ideas, because that sounds romantic to you and floats your boat, well, there's nothing we can do for you. But if you follow some sort of Christian tradition, like Eastern Orthodoxy and the fathers of the church, then you will be strongly against the Christian Zionist idea and for a pro-church. The church is the fulfillment of Christ. It's the bride of Christ. It's the fulfillment of Israel. It's the fulfillment of all things. The church of Jesus Christ is the fulfillment of all things. Israel is a byproduct that really needs to be burned up, like you're cleaning up the yard. So you got to get to the root of it, which is the biblical theological view. A lot of people are figuring this out, like Tucker Carlson. He's been interviewing a lot of theologians lately on matters like this. And it comes down to this. When I was a youngster, 16, 17, 18 years old, I'm reading the Bible, and I'd read a book like Ephesians, and it'd be like, First chapter's like, God the Father, he loves us, and God the Son, he did all this stuff for it's good stuff. And chapter 2 is some practical advice on this, that, and the other. And then chapter 3, Paul gets into this Jews, Gentiles. He spends a whole half chapter talking about Jews and Gentiles. I'll be like, why do you keep talking about Jews and Gentiles, man? It's like 2,000 years ago, man. I need to read something relevant. Well, now I finally figured it out. It's very, very relevant. It's just as relevant now as it was back then. The Jews are out. The Gentiles are in. The church, the Gentile church, and the church of Jews, all those in Christ are the fulfillment of Israel and the bride of Christ. Glorious depiction in the book of Revelation. Yeah, there's a lot to say about this, and I'll probably say it again, but if you're looking for practical positions that I have in Congress, this is a very practical one. And I very much am opposed to the views of people like Huckabee, Mike Huckabee, or Ted Cruz. And it's interesting. I used to love Mike Huckabee. When I was in Philadelphia, a bachelor, and I had the freedom to do so, I traveled from Philadelphia to New Hampshire in 2008 to campaign for Mike Huckabee for president in New Hampshire. I liked him. A little too much guns and butter, and that kind of showed its true face eventually. But he's just gone in ways that are just irredeemable. And, another guy, godly guy, knows the Bible, very smart. But the Christian Zionist thing got baked into him romantically and emotionally. He can't give it up. No, now his paycheck's tied to it and his legacy. So he's just not going to change either. But, I liked Mike Huckabee. What are you going to do? Just at some point, there's not much you can do except, just shake your head and pray and hope and love people where they're at. But the bride of Christ, the fulfillment of all things, is the church of Jesus Christ, the followers of Jesus Christ, not Israel. Israel's done. Israel is over. That is the theological argument that must be won in order to ultimately win this geopolitical contest that we're in right now, which is a sticky frickin' wicket. All right. Have I done everything I wanted to do today? I think so. I got one more. I forgot about this. Save the best for last. All right. So here's a video that came out a few years ago, and people who thought, maybe there is something to this. No, come on. I'm having a hard time bringing it up. I got to share screen. Let's do this. Let's remove that. General Wesley Clark. Some of you people who follow things are going to know what's coming up next. This is good stuff, guys. So this clip of General Wesley Clark started making its rounds, about 10 years ago. But once you see it, you're like, a lot of things start to fall in place. Okay, let's watch it. I'm going to skip after the first 15 seconds. Just hold on with me.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me. And one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said,
So he's going to talk to this general. This is General Wesley Clark, 4-star general, was vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and NATO commander. No lightweight. General Wesley Clark. This is what he had to say when he is brought in by this general to have a chat. Okay, let's see if I get it right here.
I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper. He said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today. And he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
Okay, there you go. So that all happened. So he's saying this in like 2001 or 2. And so the last 20 years have been this plan to take out these 7 countries. And it all aligns in general, not completely, but in general with the greater Israel project. So there you go. If you want to understand why we fight all these wars, if you want to understand geopolitics, you understand different things like that, I think this is going to help you get at it. Not really weapons of mass destruction, not really chemical weapons fired by Assad, not really we got to keep Iran from getting nukes. A little deeper than that. General Wesley Clark. So there you go. So I'm running for Congress. Vote for me. DeanArnoldForCongress.com. Like, share, subscribe. Questions, comments. Get them in here now before it's too late. I'm bringing sanity to an insane world. An insane world thinks that a verse in Deuteronomy that is no longer part of the covenant, it's old covenant, it's not new covenant, that specifications of land in one verse in Deuteronomy now should dictate America's foreign policy and how our military goes and kills people or doesn't kill people. That's insanity. Christians have sanity. We believe in loving your neighbor. We believe in loving your enemies. We believe in justice and just war and defense, not offensive strategy. Greater Israel is offensive, not defensive. Israel is no longer a victim. It's become an offensive problem. And this whole Greater Israel thing sort of brings it to light. Okay, I think I've shared everything I want to share. It is August 18th, and I'll bring up my music, and we'll head out of here for the day. All right, guys, love your neighbor and do the right thing.
Dean Arnold.